This month started with me going to Prakriti, reading my Haibun and free verse at schools and colleges, and at the inaugural at Alliance Phrase. I wrote a report of sorts for our second issue of Nisa magazine, and let me just read that report out to you. I must say that I have kept it a bit loosely structured. I wasn't in a mood to drive home a point like a screwdriver. I wanted to keep this a bit like a child hammering all over the place. So there's no poignancy, there's no final message, just some daydreaming in this report. In season, in nature, poetry in Prakriti. The clairvoyants are back from their holiday. They sometimes say the novel is dead, sometimes a short story. Now it's poetry. As soon as they wake up from a deep sleep and rear their heads and forget to consume the word, they kill it. They are the non consumers. With them, it's not about projecting a different future with the word. There is no future with it. But there are better non consumers of the word, the ones who haven't met the beauty and magic of it yet. And perhaps my write up is for them. Resonant of our country's and the world's oral tradition, and our family's best storytellers are grandparents. Listening to a narrative has its aura and allure. It is about intonation and mood, and bringing alive elements in the listenership. Reading off the page is private and snug. There is our own imagination between the printed word that springs off the page to mind. But to listen to words being spoken, one has to accommodate the sway of the trees, the creak of the ceiling fan, the diction of the reader, his or her attire, the magical fleeting eye contact, the sense of collective silence, the unfurling of a genie of a concept, idea, place, person outside the bottle that the narrator is. One living organism birthing and breathing out another. Just like the naysayers' dreams, there are those who dream from a place of equal delusion, for no one knows the future. That the word will survive in some form, as long as it is well thought of, and carries a seed of a tree of philosophy and imagination in our minds and memory. Ask anyone, even a so called illiterate, homeless, or dispossessed, for their favorite saying, and they will tell you something that stuck like a metaphysical talisman throughout their arduous journey. They will share in a punchline soundbite style the crystallized adage of their hardships, the idiom from the mistakes of their lives. We stick to the word at a subliminal level, more than the book, beyond the book, and organized schooling and reading. Poetry books won't sell if we try to make sense of the world in a concrete and concise way. As long as that is the only way of seeking, no other mysterious tongue can hold. Where will we find life so sorted if not at our astrologer's office? One of the many strong supporters of poetry is the Prakriti Foundation in Chennai. For the last 7 years, they have not only been supporting the other forms of art, dance, and music, but also enabling poetry readings at various venues: schools, colleges, sari shops, boutiques, art galleries, hotels, cafes, nightclubs, banks, gyms, dance schools, jewelry stores, and bookshops. This after its founder and pioneer, Ranveer Shah, woke up from a midsummer night's dream in 2004, wondering if in Chennai's winter cultural season, music and dance had the poetics of lyricism and line, why not the spoken word? Here, one dreamer's dream was up against another's. Poetry at Prakriti's original plan was to have 25 poets of diversity read to four very different audiences in very different places. And this phenomena is catching on ever since. Who came to Prakriti this year in December 2014, and what was my experience like? Chennai and its leafy green has seeped into the recalling of my experience at Prakriti. In the same vein that the urgent clip clopping of the Tonga to the colourful canopies of Diggy Palace sets the anticipation palette for me at Jaipur with its literature festival. You can't ask a drunk to walk straight. You can't ask a poet to talk straight. From the day I was in the frame of those days to now, zoomed out and away, its narrative has begun to change. Much air, more light, more sounds, more otherness has settled in between. But I shall try to keep fidelity. We met Alvin Pang from Singapore, a masterful poet and great visionary. One of the most inclusive and energetic poets I have met to date. He has a vision that poets of the world should unite above and beyond organized festivals and planned events. That poetry should talk to people on the streets as if it belonged to them and should go back to them. His dreams for poetry are so huge, so simple yet realistic, that in its furnace belly we glowed, opening and closing our eyes like fireflies, our pages, our words, our hearts, our hopes, our dreams. Dirk Hallström, who to our surprise displayed a lot of rhythmic sound poetry, where the maximum word he spoke was one, and yes, it was one in a myriad mosaic ways. Jesse James Lafleur, who was more Indian in her keenness for things Indian and who enthralled us with a fire in the belly performance pieces. Linda Ashok, the founder of Red Leaf Poetry India. Jennifer Robertson, the poet from Mumbai. Bishnu Mohapatra, the bilingual Oriya English astounding with his imagery poet. Virginia Jealous, K. Aldenhoven, and Gopika Jadeja, who came along a panel of Gujarati poets writing in Urdu, Hindi, and Devali. As the days swelled into newer ones, we read at schools and colleges and were joined in by many more poets whom I unfortunately did not get to meet or interact with because my readings were scheduled for 2 out of the 10 festival days. These poets were namely Aditi Rao, Akhil Katyal, Subo Maitro, Saurav Roy, Shobna Kumar, Jerilyn Pinto, and others. This festival was a very well planned and coordinated effort by the Prakriti team. Come nightfall, and we poets, most of whom were staying at the YWCA of Madras, off Punamali High Road, would assemble under hunched, ghost like listening trees, hanging on to each other's spoken words as auburn leaves licked milk from the moon. This year, Prakriti gifted us an anthology of poetry drawn from the poets who read in 2007. What still stays with me after these many days in Chennai's green are the lawns of British Council Library or the botanical marvel of lime trees at the Madras Christian College, and a dream of an annual Pan India Poetry Festival with simultaneous readings across states where all voices, themes, languages, tongues, dialects, styles, and forms can leap and conjure into the dawn chorus of the forest of our dreams. Shh, this before the clairvoyants wake up. While at Prakriti, the Hindu featured an interview of me, do read it here. I talk about what poetry means to me, what fiction means to me. Robin Williams' Poems for the Road podcast aired every Thursday in the month of December on an internet station called Hive Radio from 5 to 6 pm. A poetic journey down Britain's A roads and motorways, the show explored the abstraction, violence, landscapes, and migrations that characterize our experience of the road. It featured the work of 26 poets. My poem Holiday also featured in this collection as an extra feature. It was the only poem in the show to take us outside the UK. That's what Robin said. We read poetry at the Fresh Leaf readings on 21st December afternoon at the Hive, Chuim Village, Bandra. This was the first of a Delhi based community of poets called Poetry Couture and its foray into Bombay. We are very busy amassing content by Northeast writers and poets for the NISA magazine issue 2, and we hope to launch that in January at the Writers' Carnival in Hyderabad. That's all that happened to me in December 2014. It kept me pretty busy, and I think January is going to keep me very busy too. So, meet you in January and stay happy, stay blessed. Until then, until we meet again.